So, hi Charlotte. I just wanted to
Yeah.
have a little chat today about kind of the woo-woo, maybe spiritual side of
Yeah.
amenorrhea and HA, because obviously we all know about eating more calories and resting more, and that's kind of a given. But a lot of people don't really talk about that kind of side or delve into it. So I thought it'd be quite an interesting topic. I know
Yeah.
you're like all into the moon and things like that. So yeah, it'd be really cool.
Yeah. No, I definitely think there's so much more. I mean, like you said, food and exercise are really important and
Mm.
de-stressing and resting when you're trying to get your period back. But with that whole resting part, there's so much, more to that. And in the whole realm of like self-care and wellness that you can also incorporate rather than just focusing so much on like, all I've got to do now is eat more and I
Yeah.
can't move my body because I have to rest, I have to sit on the couch, I have to wait for my period. So yeah,
Totally.
there's so much we can do
Yeah.
here.
For me as well, because I was trying to get my period back, it felt like forever. It was nearly like 2 years. I then was looking at alternatives of like, it can't just be this for me, it must be something a bit deeper. So then I was looking into more the spiritual side and breathwork and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
as an extra piece of the puzzle. So cool. First of all, if we can start delving into the moon.
Yeah.
So what I kind of wanted to bring up as well that I found really interesting when I think it was in Her Blood is Gold book. Have you ever read that?
No, I haven't.
It's a really good one. And it was saying how basically like years ago our cultures would on those different cultures that when you would bleed, we'd all bleed with the moon, which I
Yeah.
know we're kind of going away from kind of now because of light, like artificial light and things like that. So we would bleed during the new moon and then ovulate during the full moon, as I understand. And what they would do is all the women would go off in a red tent or like a little
Yeah.
hut all together, and because they would all sync up back
Mm-hmm.
then, and then they would all like meditate and go inwards and just take in the knowledge and the wisdom that would come from that,
Mm-hmm.
because you're like the most powerful then, and like more in touch with the spirit world and things like that. And then the men would carry on and do all the other chores, and they would come out and the men would like really value what they would say, because they would come back with all wisdom and insights about the future if they needed to move camps and things like that. So that's like totally cool. And obviously we've kind of moved away from that now, and even like I wish I synced with the moon, but right now I'm not in sync with the actual moon. You kind of was you, or are you now?
Yeah, so I obviously when you don't have a cycle,
Hmm.
you don't have anything to go by at that time. You're obviously just trying to do whatever you can to start back up. And something that I read that I really connected with, I've always loved the moon. I've loved astrology. I love everything to do with it. It's like my guilty little pleasure. But
That's so cool though.
but the moon cycle is typically like 29 and a half days, and
Okay.
the average
I thought it was
menstrual
28, so that's
cycle,
really interesting.
yeah, and
Yeah,
the
that's good.
average menstrual cycle is kind of around that time as well. So something that I read and I instantly connected with was like, wow, if we can use the moon as a guide to maybe restart our cycle, as you said, women did used to menstruate on the new moon, so when there's
Hmm.
can't see a moon in the sky,
Hmm.
and then ovulate on the full moon. Right, it's like your most powerful energy. You've got, I guess when you ovulate, you've got all the hormones in your body. You're feeling very creative, inspired, and
Mm.
you can also feel that anyway around a full moon because of the shifts, the sort of gravitational pull that the moon has on your body. Like we're all made of water,
Yeah.
and you may or may not know, like the moon affects tides. So
Yes. Yeah.
if we're nearly like, I don't know, we're at 80% water or whatever, that has some effect on our body. So you can feel quite emotional around a full moon, or
Yeah, I
you
do
can
feel
feel
that.
really, yeah. Do you ever feel like a couple of days before the full moon, you're like, I don't know what, I'm just a bit angry, I'm just a bit pumped
Yeah,
up, whatever.
sure.
So
I've even
yeah,
noticed I've been more tired around it as well, which I don't know if
yeah,
that's like normal, but yeah, definitely.
yeah, definitely. It's quite draining as well.
Mm.
Like a lot of the time, I just take a long bath sometimes on the night of a full moon and just sit in it for hours and just let everything go. But yeah, I thought, wow, if I could use the moon as a tool to sort of maybe kickstart my cycle in a way, because women would all come together on the new moon, and it was such a spiritual time. And I mean, now when people around a new moon or when people menstruate, you know, back then they were allowed the space to connect with their intuition, turn inwards, as you said, should we move camp, like really get quiet and listen to what not only their body is telling them, but also be a channel for what's coming through elsewhere. But now, I don't know, people
go to work.
People go to work. People don't give us women a space to, like, we are so incredible. We know things like intuition, like mother's intuition, like we know stuff like that, but we don't really get a chance to flex that muscle and build that muscle. So I thought, right, I'm going to take on the new moon, I'm going to sit down, take some time, I'm going to really like get quiet, maybe sit in meditation, but you don't have to, you know, just have some time to gather your thoughts and write down some intentions for this next lunar cycle. And obviously my intention back then was to kickstart my period, like listen to my body, what actually needs to happen for this to, I know that I'm eating more, I know that I'm doing the right things in terms of rest and exercise, but is there something else that I could be doing? And then also use it as a tool to be like, right, at the time, I obviously, it was hard to like deal with the weight gain and things like that was happening, all the changes that were going in my body. So I was like, okay, my intention is to maybe be kinder to myself. What can I do to bring other aspects into my life? Is it more self-care? Is it just taking some more time in nature? You know, all these things to just calm down. And then the idea is, I mean, a lot of people use the moon for manifestation, and that's sort of becoming a bit more of a talked about topic now. But the idea was that as the moon phase in the sky, so as you start to see more of the moon in the sky, your intentions build with the moon.
Okay.
When you reach the full moon,
yep,
which is obviously around the time of ovulation, and then around the full moon is when, you know, things, you sort of, your manifestations might start to materialize.
Okay.
And you can take some time then, again, to get quiet. If you don't see anything, don't worry, it can happen at another time, but it is usually around that time that, you know, you might start to maybe think, okay, this isn't working for me, what can I do to now change and adapt, and how can I bring it inwards? And as that moon phase grows, your energy is growing, your intentions are growing with it, you sort of hit that peak creativity, that peak intuitions period, and then it starts to fall back to the new moon.
Yep.
And then you reflect, you release, you let go, you see what you can maybe change for the next cycle. And yeah, it might take time. I'm not saying like you're going to write down your intention on day 1 and by 29 you're going to have your period, but it's a really good way to just use it as a tool, because you can't cycle sync then because you don't have a cycle, but it's kind of a way to cycle sync. And you can introduce seed cycling, you can swap those with the phases of the moon. I know that you're really interested into seed cycling.
Yeah, I do that every day. I've been doing it for ages. Yeah, completely.
Yeah, so it's just
more in tune, isn't it, with your body as well. And
yeah,
we all go through cycles as well, especially when you have a menstrual cycle, you go through different phases, just like the moon. So it's really interesting. And you said about manifesting as well, and I've heard, even I feel like you kind of tweaked it towards ovulation, but I've also heard even with the new moon, like manifesting when you're actually bleeding. Have you heard about that being quite powerful, and with the actual blood? Even I've never actually tried that.
Yeah, wow. No, I mean, I've sort of, you know, tried more of like the connection, like when you're bleeding, you know, maybe doing some meditations, but I've never really tried the manifestation of bleeding. So exactly, it's just a really not like, the moon is just a really nice guideline, and some people do feel quite connected to it because their energy does change with it, and you know, it's just a nice way to be more in tune with nature, because we all have this like 24-hour circadian rhythm that we all know about, but then you have your infradian rhythm as obviously your menstrual cycle, and that is connected to nature. And if you do have a irregular cycle or a longer cycle, you actually spend more time outside and more time in moonlight, it can help to not only reduce your cycle length or bring you back to some normalcy with that, but also help with like PMS symptoms and things like that. So you know, getting that connection back really with what we had. We just missed it.
Say that. Yeah, totally. I was going to say that even getting a bit of going out into the full moon is meant to help with your circadian rhythm and regulation and things, or even sleeping with the like the full moon coming through to your bedroom. I read that, and during my trying to get my period back, I was looking more into that, and it wouldn't ever go into my room, hit into my room.
Really?
So I was looking at
in the living room.
Yeah. So then I was looking at lamps as well, and apparently
Yeah.
you can get lamps that are a certain wattage that
Wow.
kind of represent the moon, the full moon. And I tried that one night, but I could barely sleep. Having a lamp on, I was just like, that's not for me. So
Yeah, prioritize sleep first, because that's definitely more
yeah,
important.
exactly. But
But
yeah,
I
it's so
mean,
interesting how it can all totally link.
yeah, and obviously if you are completely, I am, because I use the moon as a guide to begin with. My first period did actually come on a new moon, and
So
since then it's really cool, and I love it, because I also feel like now when a couple of days before I do ovulate, I do feel a bit like, what's going on? I need a bit more grounding, and I feel that anyway with the new moon. So I'm like, thank God I don't get this twice a month. Like, it only has to come at the same time, but it's a bit more outside. But obviously, if you don't, you're not don't worry about it. Like, you don't want to mess around with, your body knows what it's doing, but it is a nice way to use it to kickstart your period. And
yes, completely. And learn about the cycle of it.
Yeah.
And even the period blood as well, like even just learning about that it has like loads of stem cells in it, and like your DNA, and like generations before you use DNA, and people, it might sound weird, like paint with it and things like that, and put it on plants.
So like sacred. It is like, it is life itself, it's a thing that is passed down, as you said, from generations, and it shouldn't be something that's like, oh, blood, like, celebrate it. I mean, I know me and you both, every time we have our period, even though it's been nearly a year, so I'm like, yay.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Like, even when I am I'm like around ovulation now, and I'm like, I just can't wait for my period. Like, it's just crazy. I'm just like, I just can't wait. I want it to be now.
Exactly. And when you introduce those sort of techniques of, like you said, maybe manifesting when you're on your period, and just thinking, right, rather than I've just got to carry on life as normal, thinking, actually, do you know what? This is my time to rest. Like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Listen to your body, honor it. And it feels so good. Like, if you are busy, which we all are, like, just taking those couple of days out to just think, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to listen to my body. I'm going to give it all the fuel that it needs. I'm going to respect it. I'm going to rest it. Like, you feel amazing afterwards, and doesn't need to be.
Totally. And it even affects your actual period. So when you are having periods and you're not, you're going against that, you can potentially get much worse PMS, cramps, everything like that. It's your body saying you need to rest, and cramps are talking to you. So yeah, definitely getting in tune with that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really interested to know more about the sort of scientific and hormonal side of it, because I know that there is a lot with, like, is it estrogen dominance, and that can cause a lot of PMS. And like, I get a lot of breast tenderness after ovulation for 2 weeks, and I think that could be down to estrogen dominance. So, like, what can I do? Is it resting more that will help that, or is it eating certain different foods? Now that I have a period, I can maybe look at adapting it to meet stages of my cycle. And it's just getting quiet, really, and listening to what's good for the body. Trial and error, I always say.
And even like on an energetic level, so what are you releasing through your period? So obviously you are, every time you're having your period, you are releasing that. So what do you want to release, sitting with that? And if you haven't got a period, it could even relate to the fact that you're holding it in, you're trying to control. That's how I felt as well, because I like a lot of people with hypothalamic amenorrhea, kind of like a control aspect. I don't want to like label everyone, but you like to be in control and have this a certain way. So therefore you might be holding your period in because you don't want to flow, and literally flow, go with the flow, let it out. So you're contracting. So even sitting with yourself with that, and I know obviously like sexual trauma, things like that can all affect it, and your womb can be like tightened and not be, again, flowing.
So some really nice ways. Some really great ways that I found, because totally, like, I think a lot of people with HA are very much, in their masculine, like, they do want that control. It's like the action of doing, and
which has pros and cons. Like, you get stuff done, you're structured, you're always on time, things like that.
But you do need to balance. You need to have a balance of the feminine, and that is the, like, action of being, of flow, creativity. So if you are holding on, or you do feel like an urge to control things, if you you make plans a lot and you feel quite stressed out when those plans maybe don't happen, or you're not very reactive to change. Some things that you could maybe do to allow some more like feminine energy and connect with the feminine more is some following your creativity. Like we were just briefly talking before about how you've started to dance in your yoga flow, and just really allowing yourself to just not take yourself so seriously. Like, how do you feel? Like, definitely connect with nature, do some as you said, like sensuality, connecting with your sensuality, not feeling so sexually blocked up and in ways. And some great ways that I really like doing it in my yoga flows, I would introduce some hip opening exercises that target the pelvic floor. We hold a lot of tension in our hips and in our shoulders, so anything we can do to like release that, it just really helps to like stimulate that area, get everything moving and open up your root chakra and your sacral chakra and all these different energy centers that you have in your body.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, so the sacral chakra, if people didn't know, is kind of around the womb area. From what I understand, and it's like an energy center, isn't it? Well, obviously you're made of energy, and this is one of the energy centers that represents, like you said, creativity. Like obviously it births life and it births creation, like sensuality, relationships, that kind of thing. And that can be out of balance, like you're talking about, and that can lead to amenorrhea, and it can lead to even like lower back pain, things like that, and wanting to be in control, anxiety. And then you mentioned about hip opening, which I found really interesting because I've noticed my hips are slightly better, but they've always been really tight. And even though I do yoga every single day and I've done it for a year now, they always were so tight. And again, that is really related to kind of lack of control, like not lack of control, wanting control. So your hips store a lot of emotions there. So I've been doing a lot of hip openers exercises, and I have noticed that since getting my period back and a little bit further down the line, like they are more open now with yoga, so that's really great. And even just coming to my mind that one of my friends started doing some yoga, and then they was actually sick. They was in a position for a while and they actually physically was sick because obviously there was an emotion there that needed to come out.
Release of
and manifest
detoxifying it out of the body.
Like it's crazy. And I've done positions and then afterwards my legs are shaking, like literally shaking so much. I've shifted the energy there. So it's really crazy. Do you know any kind of positions that would be very good off the top of your head?
So there's two chakras that I really think that you need to focus on when you have HA. The first one is our root chakra, which is actually at the base of our spine, or sometimes some traditions visualize it in the feet. And that is like the grounding energy of you. So sometimes with HA, the first thing you actually might want to work on is being grounded. If your root chakra is out of balance, it shows up in your adrenals. So as a sacral chakra can show up in your womb, the root chakra shows up in your adrenals, and like that is actually stress. And when you don't feel grounded and secure, like it's your baseline of like needs, that can actually manifest in eating disorders. So a lot of people that maybe have HA and have a disordered relationship with food, firstly might be to look at your root chakra. So in that sense, I would look at some really grounding, rooting postures. So even just like mountain pose, tree pose, bound angle, which is when you sit on the floor with your legs dropping out to the side, your soles of your feet together.
Okay.
So you sort of make a diamond shape. So you're sitting down and your soles of feet together, and then you let your knees drop out to the side and just really root down, like maybe folding over. And these are also really good exercises that you can do when you're on your period as well, because you don't want to do anything too crazy. So firstly, to get grounded, and then for your sacral chakra, work a lot on breath work. So I know you said that you were opening your hips a lot, but actually allowing your breath to get down into your belly, that will allow you to open your hips deeper and release things even further. So a lot of the time we breathe from our chest. So if we work at breathing into our belly, so into our diaphragm and into our belly button, which is where our sacral chakra is, and down by our womb, that can really help to release things. And then anything like with twists, so even if you're in like a seated twist or a standing twist, to really work on the core and boat pose, and just goddess pose, like awaken the goddess energy within you. So
What's
there's
that? Just
one that
that's not the Superman pose. What's the goddess pose?
it's kind of like, so you stand with your legs wide apart.
Okay.
You turn your feet out,
right, and then you
sink down, and you can do whatever feels good for you, just like feel some power coming through you. And I hate that pose. I still find that so hard, and I'm thinking,
I do. My legs just want to like cramp back in.
100%. But anything you can do with that. And then also, like you said, just allowing, rather than being like, this is my yoga practice, this is what I'm going to do, like I have to follow it like this, otherwise I'm not going to be like this. Just allowing whatever comes to you. That is dance. If that's like, I just want to sit here in child's pose and cry, or just allowing your emotions to come out, because that's, I think, a lot with yoga, it's I always think emotion and breath work is the first thing in yoga, and then the asana practice, the actual movement, comes later.
That's so true. That was hard for me to kind of get to grasp with as well, because I was like, all right, I want to be really flexible, I'm going to do yoga just to be flexible. But it's more getting into the moment, into the breath, taking those deep breaths as well.
Because you probably realize when you actually take that first deep breath, you probably think, wow, I've never done that before. I've always had my breath up here. I mean, I taught a class last Sunday, and a lot of the yoga classes I've been to, you go through like 50 poses in an hour. Like, you don't even enter the pose, you just move through them. And I think I taught about 5 poses in this hour. And I had people texting me afterwards, like, I've never been so productive in the morning. Like, I woke up for the first time and actually feel like myself in a long time. And I've always had problems with my hips after birth, and I managed to just get a little bit deeper. And I was like, it's because we actually sat in the pose, you connected to your breath. You weren't thinking about what's my next pose, like I should look like this. Like, come as you are, and just allow your body to relax, and as you relax, you'll release. And
which can be hard to do the relaxing part, because when I've ever done like yin yoga, I'm like, oh, this is taking ages, like, and then my mind goes off, and that's the whole point. You're meant to be in your body, like you can hold the pose for a few minutes, can't you, in some
your mind will fidget because
it
wants to give you a distraction to not deal with what is going on inside.
And then you got to ask yourself, why, like, where is this showing up in my life that I'm like agitated like this? I can't just literally sit here for a few minutes, feel a little bit of like, I don't know, pain or whatever, but you open up to that, you deep breathe. And even like you said about the deep breathing, I struggled with that for a long time. My boyfriend had to teach me how to belly breathe, like actually deep
it's crazy.
my belly, like I was like, expand my belly, I just literally can't.
Like, how does your breath go there? 100%. But now I can't imagine anything else. Like, my breath naturally is in my belly now, and it's a whole new sense of calm when you just wake up and you're like, I'm not stressing out, I just feel grounded.
Which will help with your stress levels as well. That completely like turns it on, doesn't it? You're like in synthetic mode, and tells yourself to chill out when you like that.
When you practice that on your mat, then, as you said, you can bring it into everyday life. Like, if you're on the tube and you just think, okay, I feel a bit anxious or something now, you breathe into your belly, and it helps. It switches you over quicker. It's just thinking about things.
A magical tool that we've all got within us that we kind of take for granted.
I know. We have it our whole life from birth to death, but people don't even realize that they're using it. Sometimes they don't know how to breathe. They know they breathe, but they don't know how to breathe. And
an important part of the process of HA as well, to chill out.